a call for Cliff, or from Cliff for Jim. So I'll just shut up and stare at the puppy.
Wait a minute. Someone's not
sleeping.
getting a fair deal.
the puppy's sleeping right here next to me. But yeah.
All right.
Hey, Cliff, thanks for calling.
Hey, Cliff.
Hi, I'd like input from both of you, actually. Just very quick background. I've been sort of engaging on the Kalam with a bunch of theists over the last, year. And recently, I brought up the okay, but how does a thing exist that doesn't have a start? And then they're like, oh, well, you don't know about the argument from contingency. And I'm like, well, okay, so I go look up the argument from contingency, which is basically the Kalam just phrased a different way. But again,
no, it's not.
It's not okay. Well,
I understand how you got there, so I'm going to let you keep going. But because I'm going to get email because of what you just said. You had a caller come on and say that the Kalam is just a rephrasing of the contingency argument. That's not true.
Well, would you say that they're at least related?
Only in the sense that contingency is defined as something that is contingent upon something else, and that can be viewed in the same context as something that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. So the thing that begins to exist is contingent. But the contingency argument, or the classifications of arguments that are arguments from contingency, are not just a simple reframing. There's subtle things that are different, but it's far too much to go into here. But keep going with whatever you got.
Fine. So the real crux of the question now is, we have one object, which is the universe. Things that come into existence, quote unquote, in the universe are just reformulations. And so all of the intuitions about things coming into existence, that we observe things coming into existence, is actually really problematic if the universe is the object that came to existence and all we're seeing is rearrangements within the universe.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that because I just was, I watched the debate that you had a few weeks back, and I was just curious if you thought that would be an effective attack against the Kalam.
Yeah, I used a part of that in my debate with Dean, but of course we're debating the Kalam itself. And my biggest problem with the Kalam is that it's a deductive argument, and the definition of universe, which would be the local presentation and not necessarily the entire cosmos, although some people might disagree with that. But yeah, it's everything we know seems to have a beginning. It's a question of what do you define as a beginning. If you have an acorn, for instance, an acorn is going to give rise to a oak, if I have my correct seed and tree correct. At what point does the seed become the oak, right? And that is kind of the question we're asking. At what point do you say, okay, this is no longer an acorn, it's an oak? Because at some point they're kind of both. Where is that?
I would say at every point.
Yeah.
From the beginning, at some point it stops being an acorn, but it was always an oak.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah. Go with that one too. So
just like at some point you stop being a baby, but you were always a human.
Right.
But is that a meaningful distinction? Like philosophically it's a meaningful distinction, but in terms of it's just matter changing its form.
Yes.
So
yes.
I agree with you that the intuitions that we have are formed from our experience in something in the universe, which all the best evidence shows what we see is matter and energy rearranging and exchanging and things like that. However, the Kalam is not just, it's not about intuition necessarily. And while I think that the thing that you're talking about could be used as part of a reasonable rebuttal against the Kalam, I don't know that it gets to the point. I don't know how effective it'll be, but at the end of the day, the Kalam is very simple and useless, because the Kalam is everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. That's premise number one. And the only reason it says that is because they're going to try to claim that there's something that did not have or did not begin to exist. I don't know what their justification is for that, but the second one is the universe began to exist. So premise one, everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. I don't know that that's true. And I don't know how you could make that statement because we haven't been able to look at everything. And I don't know how you determine which things began to exist and which things didn't begin to exist. So premise one is a problem. Premise two, the universe began to exist, is also a problem because what you mean by universe, the local presentation of the universe, certainly that we can attribute to say our local presentation of the universe began apparently at the singularity, and expanded, but that doesn't mean that the substance of the universe began to exist then. It doesn't mean it began to exist at all, other than perhaps that's when time in our local presentation was there. And the conclusion of the Kalam is, therefore, the universe has a cause for its existence. And so the argument doesn't include the word God, doesn't talk about God. It's only extra stuff they add. So while I think you're onto something really good, if you were having a casual conversation about our intuitions, because that first premise, everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence, that is our intuition that you're talking about, right? And to show that we're making an intuition here, but not demonstrating that it's true, that it's not deductive. There's just a big inference at the beginning. You might have something there. I just don't know how effective it's going to be.
Well, that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Thank you.